Hello, kings, queens, and monarchs of every element. I am the one, the only, the RJB0, also known as RJ the Jank Monarch. I've done a lot of limited play recently. In fact, limited Yu-Gi-Oh! Has become the centerpiece for my relationship with the game. There are tons of good limited formats, and there are also a lot of bad ones. Konami isn't exactly known for their regard for limited play. And yet there are some bangers hidden among the chaff, some diamonds in the rough, and I've decided it's my job to find them. If there's good sealed Yu-Gi-Oh! To be had, I want to know what it is so that I can play it and so that you can play it as well. Recently, I opened a box of the Grand Creators on stream, and it made me wonder, are the deck building sets really any good for deck building? So today, I'm going to take a look. As the first in hopefully a long ongoing series, I am going to be looking into the Grand Creators, whether it's good for sealed, what strategies are available, and how well it stacks up against the competition. Get ready for a one-of-a-kind perspective on Yu-Gi-Oh! Because this is a limited review. Before I get started today, there's a little bit of a disclaimer that I want to do. I'm going to be talking a lot about playing sealed Yu-Gi-Oh! And I know that there's a lot of connotation and pretension around that, and folks seem to think, oftentimes, that sealed Yu-Gi-Oh! Means you're opening sealed product that you bought. And I'm here to say, it doesn't need to be. I loved opening a box of the Grand Creators, and I'm really excited to open a box of every set that I do this review for. But there's no reason in this age of virtual pack openings why you shouldn't be able to do this with all of your friends for absolutely free over on YugiOhProDeck.com and on Dueling Book. So since we're talking about sealed Yu-Gi-Oh! And limited Yu-Gi-Oh! In general, and if I'm going to be giving a grade on a set, I should probably give a little bit of a standard for how I'm going to be judging. First of all, it has to have a set of complete, although not fully realized strategies that are flexible and synergistic with each other. Part of what makes limited play, specifically sealed and draft, exciting is the exciting intermixing of different strategies, how we use the best of the resources that we can get to create interesting and new strategies. So you want a variety of strategies that have accessible cores that you can blend together and mix and match. Second, there needs to be little to no filler. I've played through enough GX sealed sets to know that it is not worth playing a pack that's all filler. Third, the cards that are core to each strategy need to be low rarity. High rarity cards are great, and it's exciting when those cards are good, but the cards that you just basically need in order for a strategy to function, to operate, should be available at lower rarities. Fourth, among all of these cores, none of them should be more dominant than others. There should never be a strategy that you absolutely must play if you want to win. The point of limited is that you get to try different and new things. If one strategy is always dominant, then it's not worth it. Fifth, it should be exciting to open. Even if the cores are low rarity, you want some interesting high rarity payoffs. Six, every strategy should have outs and or a lot of setup it goes through. Of course, you want your payoffs to pay off, but you don't want a person to be able to activate one card that takes 20 cards to out. To that end, item 7 is a good and accessible balance between answers and outs for answers. Typically, this means good back row and good outs to back row, but it could also mean things like hand traps to stop plays and extenders to respond to hand traps. 8. Your staples should be good, but not ultimately stronger than your core strategies. You want your strategic play to make the difference, not necessarily just if you drew the power card. And finally, 9. Unfun bullshit is a reality of sealed play, and sometimes it's a benefit of sealed play. It's okay if there's unfun bullshit, but it should be intentional, it should be a build around, and it should require active thinking. There's a reason Gavin Knox has such a following in progression playoffs. There isn't easily access to unfun stuff in most of these sets alone, but when you find it, it's really exciting to have pulled off a cool strategy. So with all of that in mind, let's jump into looking at the strategies available in the Grand Creators. Let's start off with Inzectors. Insectors is a little bit of a roller coaster of emotions when you first look at it in this set. The first thought that comes to mind is LOL 2012 deck. But then you realize the entire core is available at low rarity. But then you realize it's missing the extenders like Reborn cards and Gigamantis. But then you realize that Insect Imitation searches the entire deck. Ultimately, I'd say this iteration of Insectors is one of the most powerful and complete decks available in any limited Yu-Gi-Oh set. As I said before, it has the entire core short of Gigamantis available in basically common rarity. It even has all of the Xyz payoffs, except inexplicably any rank 3s. Its only real weakness is extendability. Without Reborn cards, Insectors really do one thing and are done with their turn, and without a lot of recursion to work with, they're only going to be able to do that a couple of times before the game is effectively over. Will that matter if you destroy your opponent's board every turn? Probably not. But it's certainly something to consider. Overall, this is an easy S-tier archetype. This strategy is playable at nearly full power, although it doesn't have the extendability to make it an absolute problem in the set. And a lot of the strategies available in the set are very, very well suited to countering it. I think this strat is very strong, but also balanced enough to not make it totally oppressive. Konami nailed it with this one. The next archetype in here is Punk. And this one is really exciting. It's a series of psychics that are mostly level 3s and are all based on Japanese art forms. The spells and traps in this archetype that are available to search are all incredibly strong. One of them destroys face downs, or if you have a punk monster, destroys face ups. One of them is just breakthrough skill, and the spells all do something that make them very irritating to Insectors. They're effectively, as a deck, Insectors' annoying little sibling telling them over and over again to stop hitting themselves. Ukiyo-e Punk has Amazing Dragon, which is a genuinely cool and powerful synchro you can pick up at ultra rare. Bolstered by the random psychic support that they decided to throw in here, it's very easy to access the payoffs for the Ukiyo-e Punk cards, even if they're at high rarity. Although I gotta say, again, would it have killed you, Konami, to give us a rank 3 Xyz or a level 6 synchro? That would have made this strategy so much better and more interesting. They can't all be winners. If Zeman play is something you're into, you could always play no Punk. You can cross off Zeman jokes from the Grand Creators bingo. If you pick up Ogre Dance as an Ultra, Zay Amen gives you a very powerful immediate payoff to the strategy. In fact, it is probably the best turn 1 strategy that you can go for in that case. Actually, out of the whole bunch, the Punks have the coolest holos of the set. Amazing Dragon, Ogre Dance, Foxy Tune, these are all fantastic and easily tutored payoffs for the strat. Unfortunately, though, this strat does come with some rather conspicuous cons. Your boss monsters have been GXified inexplicably by nerfing their ability to get high-level monsters out of the deck. And aside from those monsters, your lineup is largely pretty dinky. If you don't pull Amazing Dragon, there's a good chance that your strategy is going to amount to basically playing Protect the Castle with a 2600 ass. If you get awkward holo pulls, it can totally eliminate this strat from contention. Overall, I'd give Punk a B+ as a sealed strategy. If there were more payoffs like rank 3 Xyz or level 6 synchros, I would give this one an easy A or an S. But as is, the Punk cards are likely to be just an additional engine that you can throw in to bolster something like an Insector strategy. Now it's time for us to talk about the elephant in the room. The Adventurer cards. At first blush, the Adventurer cards are incredible and easily the best cards in the set. There's just one teeny problem. Wait a sec. Hold up. Wait, what? Which one has the effect that summons the token? F. Unfortunately, to capitalize on the sweet, sweet secondary market, Konami put this deck together the assest of backwards, with all the core cards at ultra rare, all the searchers for the core cards also at ultra rare, and all of the payoffs at low rarity. There is just no feasible way to run the Adventurer cards in sealed, because not only do they not get their effects properly if you don't get an Adventurer token, most of them you literally literally cannot activate if you do not have an adventurer token present, which just makes it terrible that the only thing that creates adventurer tokens is at high rarity, as is the only thing that searches that, as is the only thing that capitalizes off of it properly. There's just no chance your adventurer cards are going to resolve, which sucks because the adventurers are such cool cards. There are so many really interesting cards that could be great in limited. But with every last starter taking up an ultra rare slot, this is the worst isekai since Rising of the Shield Hero. Then there are Exorcisters. Exorcisters are a series of lesbian nuns that combine to form zombie-fighting polycules, which, aside from being my ideal apocalypse situation, also positions them very well for this set exactly. Their continuous spell Carpe Diem is just final proof that Konami built this set entirely to punish us for forcing them to create Inzektor support. In fact, the entire core is built to be a one-card Xyz engine that punishes Inzektors exactly. Toss in an in-archetype King of the Feral Imps at common, and you have yourself a surprisingly competent splashable engine. And at your ultra-rare slot, you have Michaelis as a payoff, a card that allows you to banish cards at quick effect speed, which in and of itself single-handedly puts this strat into contention. But unfortunately, Konami has once again put two of the core cards in Sophia and Pax at ultra rarity, which is, not great. But mostly, the strat is still playable. Depending on the holos you get, this can absolutely be an extremely strong include in a deck. Overall, I'd say this strat gets a B from me. Placed in any set that doesn't feature a powerful graveyard strategy, this is a total flop, unplayable. But in this set exactly, depending on your payoffs, this could be really, really strong to include. So having looked at all the strats, let's take a look at grading the set as a whole. Criterion number 1, if you remember, was a variety of flexible, synergistic, and strong, although not fully realized strategies. I'd say this set does decently well with that. There are a variety of really cool strategies. Most of them are very strong in and of themselves, but they are a little bit on the parasitic side. They can operate easily in a deck together, but they don't really synergize much, which means you aren't going to get any truly exciting moves out of this set. Category 2 was little to no filler. While all of these cards are really exciting for limited play, unfortunately, the blanking of an entire strategy in Adventurers means a quarter of the entire pack is filler. I wish it were not so, and aside from those, everything is really cool in this set, but I gotta grade it down for that. Item number 3, core cards are low rarity. Item 4, is no strategy is clearly and oppressively dominant over the others. And while it looks at first blush like Inzektors fulfill that condition all on their lonesome, the fact that the other strategies have cards that are really well positioned against Inzektors makes that not necessarily so. In fact, I would argue that the holo payoffs make a huge difference in what decks you play in this set. 5, it's exciting to open. This is true both physically and virtually for this set. Your ultra rares are largely going to be really cool cards, whether they be powerful extenders or big boss monsters. There are tangible and worthwhile strategies. You can build your punks to make amazing dragon. You can use them to summon big guys from your hand. The Inzektors can go the whole 9 yards and finish with a rank 6 Xyz. All of these strats really do feel like they're building towards something interesting whenever you're playing, and that certainly fulfills this condition. Item 7, your answers and your outs to answers are easily accessible and both are abundant. I would say this set kind of meets that one. I would give this a 3 out of 4 on that item because there are things like Solemn Strike and Torrential Tribute in here that are really, really powerful interrupters that, with the low amount of extension available, are going to be turn-endingly strong in many situations, but the Joruri Punk trap card giving you the ability to out those fairly easily means that it feels like there's the potential for a lot of turns to end prematurely and not necessarily in a fun way, but oftentimes you'll be able to preempt that with a well-placed trap card. Condition 8. The staples are good, but not stronger than the core strats. Unfortunately, I think that this one falls flat. Solemn Strike and Torrential Tribute are extremely powerful traps to include in here. But other than that, the spell cards are generally synergistic with the strategies, and the strategies themselves are very, very strong individually. And number 9, Unfun Bullshit requires build around and a lot of intentional thought. And I'd actually say there isn't any real unfun bullshit in here. Sure, the Insectors can destroy a board, but they can't do a huge amount after that unless you get a really powerful Xyz combo. Most of the time with Insectors, you're actually going to have to choose between destroying the board and going for something like an Exabeetle, which means that really I wouldn't expect any unfun bullshit out of this set. Which is honestly a little bit of a disappointment. Being able to put together an interesting strategy that causes lockdown states that you wouldn't have expected to be possible in the set is sometimes part of the fun of playing sealed. Overall, much like the punk cards that I'm so excited about, I'd give this set a B+ for sealed play. The absolute loss of the adventurer strategy is kind of a tragedy, and the fact that the cards themselves don't form synergistic strategies other than the individual archetypes that they were made for. But ultimately, Grand Creator's full box sealed, I'd say, is a solid hit. I think it looks really fun. But what about other limited formats in Yu-Gi-Oh? Hyper limited sealed, the 20 card decks with 4,000 life points are another aspect of Yu-Gi-Oh! If you're getting 10 or even 15 packs of the set, I expect your holos, even your super rares, to make a much bigger difference. And that means that things like the punk rares as well as the Exorcister 1-card Xyz mechanic is going to make a much bigger difference in your games. I also think that with a few additions and some removals, this set can make for a pretty decent cube. First of all, I'd toss in a little bit of limited spell or trap removal. The Jaruri Punk trap card is solid, but it only usually hits face down cards and is not very good reactively. Something like a Twister or a Raigeki Break may add to that. Playing in a cube also lets you bring in the adventurer cards more easily. I might recommend leaving out Griffin Rider because an Omni-Negate is extremely powerful in limited play. But then there's the flip side of that, which is that a single Griffin Rider getting shuffled back into the deck may leave you a little bit vulnerable and lower your tempo. Ultimately, I'd still say that it's probably too good, but the adventurer cards can overall probably be pretty healthy in a cube. The biggest thing I'd add is more extra deck payoffs. I'd like to see some limited power rank 3 and level 6 cards in the extra deck. Things like Giga Brilliant and HTS Psyhemoth are powerful, but limited and are on theme for the set. Some additional graveyard extenders, such as Call of the Haunted, may also benefit the set in allowing you to play around some of the outs that exist. That also plays into the Exorcister strategy, which I think is a cool dynamic. You can also add a little bit more oomph to the Exorcister strategy by adding things like DD Crow or the Transmigration Prophecy to make you able to manually activate their 1-card Xyz effects. If you're a big fan of Psychics, Insectors, or even just the Exorcister strategy, this is probably a very good cube to put together. These are some really fun strategies with some really, really cool payoffs that I don't think you'll get to see properly in the TCG. And my final verdict? Absolutely play the Grand Creators Limited. Sealed presents some really cool deck building strategies that hinge around the really cool ultra rare payoffs that are available for most of the archetypes in this set. And the strategies themselves are flexible enough and powerful enough that a cube could be really fun if you're into any of the archetypes that are available here. It might just be an expensive one until Konami does something about the adventurers. Doing this review has been a great time, and I'm really looking forward to the next one. If you want to see more limited reviews, let me know in the comments section below what you liked about this series, what you want to see from it in the future, and if you have any sets or any archetypes from this set that really excite you for limited play. Walk forward in humble confidence, my friends, and I hope you have a great day. Hey everyone, thank you so much for checking out this video. This was a really fun one to make, and I do intend to make them in the future, but it was also experimental. There are a lot of improvements that I can see for the future, and I'm excited to do those for the next time. If you want to support this channel and help me to create more videos like this, more different videos, I have a lot of cool projects coming down the line that I'm very excited for. Please do take a second to check out my Patreon. There are a couple of tiers there with some really cool perks quirks, among them little bits of filming and video that didn't make it into this particular episode, but I think are still really fun. Things like my deck profile for the Grand Creator Sealed and my first reactions to each of the archetypes as I was filming my B-roll. I think these are all a lot of fun, and I really appreciate the support from my channel in helping me to make the best content that I possibly can. I want to shout out quickly the first 4 patrons that I got when I made this Patreon, who are MBT is a nice and wholesome fellow, Diamond Dude, Farfa's Salty Tears, and Pat. I appreciate all of your help. Massive shout outs to all of you, and I hope you all have a great day.